So today's video I'm going to be talking about the gentrification of Depop. So first of all, I wanted to make this video as a kind of a response to Theresa Jordan's video, which is the gentrification of Depop. She does a lot of commentary videos and stuff like that. And I've also watched Tanya and Tiffany Ferg's videos about the rise of thrifting and gentrification of thrifting and reselling, so I'll link those in the description as well because you should definitely check those out. But before I get started, my name's Kyra, so if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. Trying to get to at least 300 by the end of the year. I'm so close. I'm at 282, I think. So yeah, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok and Depop, of course. Okay, I'm going to read the definition of gentrification according to Google. It is a noun, the process of renovating and improving a house or a district so that it conforms to middle class. So that's what Google says gentrification is. What I understand is gentrification is well, in LA there's a lot of obviously poor, lower income areas, which is obviously the areas in Skid Row, but then when they build a Starbucks or upscale restaurant or coffee house or put in new apartments, that's what I think of when it's gentrification. So gentrification obviously can be applied to a lot of things, including thrifting and reselling. So there are a lot of reasons why gentrification is considered bad or harmful. It's because it literally pushes out people of a certain class or income and just makes things accessible only to middle or higher class people. So let's say if we're in Los Angeles and we're in a low income area and all of a sudden they start building these really expensive apartments, start putting in new coffee shops, restaurants. These people that are lower income won't be able to afford any of this, and then everything else will go up and it will only be suited for middle and upper class people. It's basically displacing people who are already struggling or that are in this certain bracket where they can't afford any of the necessities or living or even just live in the area that they were living in first before other people came in and kind of took over the area and tried to make it better. I would think that gentrification would help people, but in turn it doesn't really do much for them. It might for some people, but the majority of people don't really benefit from gentrification. Gentrification, yes, it brings in more jobs and it brings in a lot more different kinds of people that aren't in the same bracket as those who were living there before. But again, you have to realize that what services are these people providing, or what things are they selling? Will that be able to be afforded by the people that were living there before? And most of the time it's not for them, and it's for a certain demographic, which is the upper middle class kind of people. I don't necessarily think that if you have a business and you're going to move into a lower income community or demographic is a bad thing, because sometimes, especially in California, a lot of small business owners aren't able to afford a spot or a place in Melrose or something that's very trendy, very hip, or that gets a lot of traffic. And so most of the time when you're a small business, you don't have a lot of money to be paying that much rent. And even in a lower income area, it's still a lot of money, especially for new small business owners, to pay rent. So I don't think that in that scenario it's a bad thing. But if you're someone that has a lot of money and you're already forming a business and you have that money to have it established somewhere else, then I think that's a problem. So I did a poll on my Instagram, and it's only been up for 2 hours, and 75% said yes and 25% no when I asked, do you guys think that thrifting has become gentrified? So 75% of people said yes and 25% said no. A lot of people started to reply. Someone said it's kind of a white people thing, but that's because wealthy kids are into it. I'm assuming that's what they meant. Someone else said, I noticed over the years that the prices went up at Goodwill's, and I was like, because I remember where a t-shirt would be like $3 and now it's like $8 sometimes, which is also a good point. And then someone else replied, I think it depends honestly, and I was like, I guess a couple of things like, what is thrifting? I don't know if it has like a set definition, but there's like flea markets that upsell clothes like crazy, and it's kind of weird to me, but that's their business, I guess. But yeah, I think there's like the style of dressing poor when you do have money to buy decent clothes is kind of gentrification, I guess. So that's basically where the consensus is on thrifting and upselling. So I feel like a lot of people, when they think of Depop, it's like they think of a certain kind of person, which is like aesthetically pleasing, always has the coolest outfits, probably lives in LA or in some sort of city, and like makes money off of just reselling clothes and basically is their own boss, which in itself is fine, but then it becomes this bad reputation for Depop and for resellers, because Depop has become synonymous for overpriced items, scamming, drop shipping, just basically just ripping off people. And it's become a place where now it's not for everyone. Now it's not accessible to everyone to buy affordable thrifted clothing. Now it's just become like this tier of people, meaning from what I've seen is just like the highest Depop sellers selling super expensive stuff, and then just like people who are selling on the side but still rather expensive. Now there's a whole lot of factors that come into play with like price, because Depop takes a 10% cut, then there's shipping, whether the person that's selling is buying shipping or they're making the buyer pay for shipping, and then there's also the cost of packaging. It doesn't really like balance itself out to the point where you can make an actual living out of it. I'm not saying that justifies what other Depop sellers do when they sell a baby tee that was like $3 at the thrift and selling it for $45 like that. Like, just that's insane to me, because like there's no reason that should be $45. Like, no reason. So the thing with gentrification, reselling, Depop, and all of that stuff is that there were actually people that were thrifting before it was cool and trending. Not because they thought it was cool and trending. Some people might have thought it was cool to thrift even before it was societally accepted to thrift, or aesthetic, or cool, or anything like that. People used to thrift and still thrift for the necessity of clothing. A lot of older people and a lot of people with families that are lower income tend to be the ones that are thrifting. But then it's become a rising trend of people thrifting because it's cool, because like they want to dress poor, or have that certain aesthetic, like the artsy kind of aesthetic, which is like just like, I guess like it's fine, but if you're doing that in a way that's taken away from other people. I already talked about this in my other video, if reselling is ethical, so if you haven't watched that, make sure you check that video out. When I was younger in middle school and throughout high school and throughout to now, I used to thrift a lot because I didn't have a lot of money. So like my mom would never like want to take me shopping, but like I got money from however I got money by selling stuff or whatever, and I used that money to buy myself clothes that I wanted to wear, because my mom would like dress me in like clothes that I didn't like. It was mostly like school uniforms or like, you know, just like basic jeans and like shirts, but I wanted like vintage clothing. Like I wanted things that looked old, and like my mom would probably take me shopping like once a year, and I was like for school shopping, so I just had like that one shopping trip, and I had to like wait the whole year again until I got more clothes. I remember feeling kind of like bad because I saw my friends, or like when I'd hung out with my best friend at the time, like she'd always be shopping and she'd always get new clothes from like Justice or like Limited 2 or like all of those like fancy fancy stores like at the mall that I thought were like the best things at the time. And I don't think a lot of people deal with like the stigma of thrifting, because like now it's become so normalized that thrifting is associated with teens and young adults, and it's just something that they do to like hang out and like do stuff together. But before, like even my mom would be like, why do you want used clothes? Like she still tells me like, why do you want used clothes? Like that's gross because someone else like used it. Or like when I was in school, people like people at school would tell me like, oh, your clothes look old, or they look used, or like they'd make fun of me because they'd be like, you're thrifting because you have no money. I remember the era of like the hipsters and all the non-conformity teenage angst of just like wearing the glasses with like the no lenses, and then like wearing the high knee socks and the hat and the scarf and the cardigan, and oh gosh, so much nostalgia from that. But it was really the mentality of being anti-conformity Aquarius. But I remember that time, and I think that's when I found myself like, yeah, I think that thrifting is really cool. And I made that conscious decision by myself. Like I already knew that I liked thrifting, but the fact that other people were the same people that were making fun of me that I was thrifting and had old clothes were now hopping onto this, it just kind of like always stuck with me. So it is the age of like kind of old school YouTube. So like YouTubers, and then I guess you'd still call them influencers, but we just didn't have a name for them at the time, started making all these thrift videos and like upcycling and DIY stuff. And I think that's really how thrifting started to grow as a normalcy for a lot of people, and it really became like this whole subcategory of like the fashion community. And I think by like maybe 2014, 2015, everyone was thrifting, everyone and everyone's dog was thrifting, and it became this now ideal aesthetic, and now it has become this aesthetic. But I think it progressed from hipsters to indie to alternative to, I guess, Depop sellers, which has all these different aesthetics, but all of them stem from like thrifting, whether it's like 90s, Y2K, 80s, 70s, 60s, let's go on, vintage, retro. All of those kinds of things are normally from pieces that you would pick up from a thrift store. And therefore we have all these different kinds of aesthetics today, which are aesthetics that tend to sell best on Depop for very overpriced prices. The one that I reference a lot is iGirl, and she really brought the Y2K goth era kind of trend aesthetic back, I guess. I haven't really seen anyone else that's done that, and she's definitely a household name, and she's definitely one of those people that you know are from Depop just by the way that her aesthetic is. There's certain people, I don't know, but there's like certain people you know that have a Depop. Like you look at them like on Instagram, you're like, they definitely have a Depop, and what do you know, they have a Depop. But there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying. So Depop was founded in 2011 in Italy, and it was basically just an e-commerce thrift store. But then it started evolving as the times are changing and everything was evolving into what it is today. But it was literally just meant for reselling old clothes for people to be able to buy at an affordable price and maybe even start your own business. So I would say I started my Depop in 2017, at the end of 2017, or kind of middle-ish of 2017, beginning of 2018. So I've been doing it for about 3 years now, going to be 4 years, and it's definitely changed like a lot. I remember when I first started Depop, it was because my best friend Matthew told me he had bought a sweater from Depop. I had no idea what it was, and then that's literally how I started it, and I thought it was really, really cool. I love the whole layout and the aesthetic of the app. I think it's way more pleasing than Etsy, because I did try Etsy before and I didn't like it. And all those other reselling apps that are new, like Mercari or like, anyways, those kinds of apps. But Depop has always like been the app for me and what I'm more comfortable with, and I just feel like it's a really artsy kind of app for people. But I remember asking people if they had Depop, and a lot of people didn't know what Depop is. It was really like a small user base, but now everyone has a Depop, or everyone has heard of Depop. The majority of people, like, I don't even have to explain what Depop is anymore. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I know what Depop is. But before, when I first started, I was like, oh yeah, I started selling on Depop, or I'm selling stuff on Depop, do you want to take a look? And then people would be like, what's Depop, like, what is that? But I feel like now, 2018, 2019 was when Depop really started popping off. But now I think it's just become like such a popularized app by everyone that that plays into part of the gentrification. But I guess the gentrification doesn't really come into what you do or your intentions with the app or how you use the app. It's become really overwhelming with the amount of stuff that's on Depop. Just a lot of things that you're trying to find, and like Depop doesn't filter it out, but it will filter out the people that are top selling and that are making the most money for Depop. Even with things that aren't even related to your search or your filter, it will still pop up in your DNA or your home feed or your search. Obviously, because Depop wants to push people that are making the most money. I think it's really sad that people have made Depop into, I guess, what it is now. I'm not going to say that it's all bad, because obviously I sell on Depop and I do style bundles, and I resell stuff from my closet. Very rarely will I go to the